All right, welcome back for Chapter 3, Lesson 2. We're talking about angles formed by parallel lines and transversals. So for the warm-up, we're just going to identify each angle pair. So you're just going to identify these angle pairs here using this particular diagram. So where's my friend? Oh, here's the pause dragon. So go ahead and get started. When you get done, press play and we'll go over it together. All right, so let's see how you did. So whenever I'm looking like this, looking at a problem like this, I want to figure out, well, what is the transversal? That's the line, remember, that intersects two of the lines. So this line here intersects one line. This line intersects one line. This line intersects 1, 2. So this is our transversal. It's always really, really important to be able to identify what that transversal is first. So once we've done that, let's talk about each of these angle pairs. So angle 1 and angle 3, notice they're on the same side of the transversal, and angle 1 is on the left side of this line, and angle 3 is on the left side of this line. So that means that these are corresponding angles. So corresponding angles. So if you got that one right, awesome job. Okay, let's look at 3 and 6. So 3 and 6 are actually both, remember, interior. They're on the interior part of inside of both of these lines. So those are interior, and they're on alternate sides of this transversal. So that means they are alternate, what? Just alternate, make that a biggie. Alternate interior angles. Okay, and then let's look at 4 and 5. Well, 4 and 5 are both on the outside, so those are exterior angles, and they're on alternate sides of this transversal, so those are alternate, hopefully I can spell this one right this time, alternate exterior angles, okay? And so if you got those ones right, it's a great job so far. And lastly, 6 and 7. They are interior angles, right? And they're on the same side as the transversal. So they are same side interior angles. Okay, and this is where the fun begins. So this is corresponding angles postulate. Super important. This is a flashcard alert. Okay, so what does this say? It says corresponding angles postulate. It says if two parallel lines, super important, they have to be parallel. Okay, so far have we dealt with any lines that have been parallel? The answer is no. Okay, now we are dealing with two parallel lines. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. So if two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then the pairs of corresponding angles are congruent. So this is where it becomes really important that you're able to identify a transversal, and you're also able to figure out what corresponding angles are, because if they're parallel and they're cut by a transversal, all the corresponding angles are the same. So let's look here at this diagram. Do we have a transversal? First off, do we have parallel lines? The answer is yes. These little marks right here show that these two lines are parallel, okay? So then what else? Do we have a transversal? Is there a line that intersects two lines? And yes, that would be this line right here. Okay, so we have a transversal, parallel lines, transversal. That means all of the corresponding angles are congruent to each other. Okay, so that means that 1 and 3 are corresponding, they're congruent. 2 and 4 are corresponding, they're congruent. 5 and 7 are corresponding, they're congruent, and also 6 and 8. So we have 4 sets of angles that are totally congruent. Okay, so remember the first key, the lines have to be parallel, they're cut by a transversal, all the corresponding angles are congruent. So let's look at our first example. It says, using corresponding angles postulate, this bad boy right here, flashcard, ooh, it needs a little star on this side. Okay, using the corresponding angles postulate, find each angle measure. So this one right here, angle ECF. ECF is right here. This is angle ECF. Okay, so we need to determine, right now it's called X. We need to figure out what that is. Well, what do we have? First, do we have parallel lines? Well, yeah, we do. There are these little marks right here which tell us that these two lines are parallel. That's awesome. Are they cut by a transversal? Is there a line that intersects two? And yes, that would be this line right here. That's our transversal. So what that means is that all corresponding angles are congruent. Well, is there a corresponding angle that is the same as this one? Well, yeah, the corresponding angle to this one, right? This is on the right side of the line, would be this one. This one's on the right side. So we know that these are corresponding angles, therefore they are congruent. So let's go ahead and write this out. So what do we know? We know the measure of angle ECF, so measure of angle ECF is equal to the measure of CBG, angle CBG, because of the corresponding angles postulate, right? We have two parallel lines. These are corresponding angles. They are congruent. And then what do we know about CBG? Well, we know that's equal to 70 degrees. So I'm going to say measure of angle CBG is equal to 70 degrees. And then I'm just going to substitute that in right here. And boom, there we have it. The measure of angle ECF is equal to 70 degrees. All right, pretty cool. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one. It says DCE. Okay, so DCE, what is that? DCE is this angle right here. Okay, DCE, so this angle. All right, so first off, do we have parallel lines? Boom, yes we do. Do we have a transversal? Yes. So that means all the corresponding angles are congruent. Well, what would this be, a corresponding angle to this be? Well, the corresponding angle to DCE, right, it's on the same side of the transversal, so, and then this is on the right side of this line, and this line right here, this angle is on the right side, so they're corresponding angles, therefore they are the same. They are congruent. They're equal to each other, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and say we have to find the measure of DCE. So the measure of angle DCE is equal to the measure of ABC. ABC. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and define my terms, right? So DCE, measure of angle DCE is equal to 5x. And I'll do it below. The measure of angle ABC is equal to 4x plus 22. And then we just substitute those values in. So the measure of DCE is 5x. So we have 5x equaling the measure of ABC, which is 4x plus 22. So now we just have a nice algebra problem. We got to figure out what x is first. So we have variables on both sides, right? So we're going to use that subtraction property of equality to get the variables on the same side. This is 0. 5x minus 4x is just x equaling 22. So now we know what x is, but we need to figure out what angle of DCE is. So we know that the measure of angle DCE is equal to 5x, right? So then we just substitute in what x is. It's 22 right here. 5 times 22, and then do some little multiplication. 22 times 5, what's that? 5 times 2 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So it's 110 degrees. That is the answer. All right, so you see how that's done. You see how to show your work. Okay, now it is your turn to check it out and see if you can figure it out. So check out example 1 right here. You're going to use this figure. And so where's my friend to figure out what the measure of QRS is? Here's my friend, the pause dragon, reminding you to pause your device, go ahead and work out this problem, and then press play, okay, when you figure it out. All right, so we're back. Let's go ahead and look at this together. First, what we need to know, are there any parallel lines? And the answer is yes. These little marks right here tell us that these two lines are parallel. Super important. They have to be parallel. The second thing is there a transversal? is there a line that cuts through two lines or intersects two lines. So this line right here intersects one line, it intersects two lines. This is our transversal. So since we have two parallel lines and a transversal, what we know are that all of the corresponding angles are congruent. So the measure of angle QRS, where is that? So QRS. Okay, QRS is right here, QRS. So that would be this angle here. So this is the angle that we need to figure out, okay? All right, so the corresponding angle to that one would, QRS would be, this is on the right side of the line, so that would be right here, would be on the right side. So these would be corresponding. However, there's no values for either of these angles, so that doesn't really help us. Okay, so let's look at where there are values. So there's a value here, and there's also a value here. So let's look at this. Okay, so we have this. There's a value here. This is what X is, and this is on the left side. Do we have a corresponding angle that's on the left side? Yeah, we have 118 right here. Okay, perfect. So what we know is there's not really a value here. We know these two are equal because they're of the corresponding angles postulate. There's no symbols here, so I'm just going to, there's not enough symbols. So I'm just gonna say, hey, X is equal to 118 degrees, okay? Now, we need to find QRS. How are we able to do that? Okay, so we know this is 118 and we figured out what X is. X is also 118 degrees, right? Well, what do we know about these two? Okay, these two are actually, they are a linear pair, which means they're supplementary, okay? So that means that this angle plus this angle equals 180 degrees. So since I don't have symbols, normally I'd write with symbols, but I don't have them in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this 118, and I'm going to say 118 plus the measure of angle QRS is equal to 180 degrees, right? They're a linear pair, they're supplementary, it's a linear pair, so it's 180 degrees. So from here, we're just gonna use our algebra to figure out what the measure of QRS is. So we're gonna get rid of this 118 by using the inverse operation, which would be subtraction. To both sides, that cancels. We're left with the measure of angle QRS equals, just have to do a little bit of subtraction here. Got to borrow, making that 10. 10 take away 8 is 2. This is a 7. 7 take away 1. 7 take away 1 is 6. And 1 take away 1 is 0. So 62 degrees. So the measure of angle QRS is 62 degrees. So if you got that one right, awesome job. If you didn't, go ahead and fix your work. And so it looks just like mine. And yeah, that's it. All right, we'll see you in a little bit for example 2.